Hey guys, welcome back to another special awesome episode where I have two UK national champions. We were going to get a third, but man's busy picking pumpkins, Mr. George Rogers. So we've got Matt Foulkes, the 2021 UK national champion.
Yeah, a while ago now.
Yeah, I know. Phil, that was the one I was in as well. Managed to squeak in top 8, and now I'm like, that's a long time ago now. I don't know how long I can hold on to that. And Pro Tour champion, so there you go. And
one's little long ago.
Yeah,
Still quite a while, it feels like.
and the not so long ago and very, very recent Alex Chitu. Hey, I got it. And he is the current UK national champion. We just want to talk a little bit about thoughts on the World's Championship coming up next week. So these boys are going to give us their thoughts, basically. But before we start, how are you guys doing? Start with you, Alex.
Not too bad. I've been preparing quite a lot with my teammates and with the other UK players at large. So we're very excited for both CC and draft.
Yeah.
We're expecting quite a varied and nice meta, so we'll see what happens.
Okay, cool. And then what about you, Matt?
I've been streaming pretty much all my prep.
Yeah.
Until about a week ago, I'd been playing a bit. I drafted a fair amount. I'd gone to some RTNs. And I was kind of okay vibing it a bit, but not really committed. And then I watched the calling last weekend and I saw this Dash.io deck go 14-0. And I was sweating it because I am the only person, gotta get my brags in early. I am the only person to 15-0 a Flesh and Blood tournament. That stands to this day.
No, I think Matt Rogers also did as well.
Rogers, no, he didn't 15-0 a tournament.
Yeah, he did.
Which tournament did you get that in?
I thought it was
No.
I thought it was the Nationals one.
No, he went undefeated. His was not 15 rounds. It was not. I'm the only person who's 15-0 Flesh and Blood tournament. I'm pretty certain that record stands. And
challenge accepted.
And it was in jeopardy. It was in serious jeopardy. This guy's going 14-0, and to be fair, it's a lot harder to win matches of Flesh and Blood these days than it was back in 2021.
Yeah,
and so fair play. And with a crazy awesome deck as well. And I'm watching, and I'm just so excited by this deck he's playing. But I was like, I gotta go and play that deck. That deck is crazy. It's Dash.io from Bright Lights for anyone not familiar.
Yeah.
And it just fully invigorated me to want to actually practice a ton, and have played 20 plus games every day since. And I'm unfortunately no longer on the Dash.io deck.
Yeah.
After putting in a ton of work, I was maybe that people have been able to fix some of the problems that I found. I hope so. I think the deck's really exciting and very fun, but had some huge issues.
Well, let's talk about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down some of these top pick heroes, discussing about some of the calling matchups that happen and how all of that is kind of influencing the preparation of Worlds, since you two are going, and we'll just sort of get your thoughts on that. But so since we're talking about this crazy Dash.io deck, which lost to Azuri, right? These two heroes that. Should they be? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say should they, but I mean, you wouldn't if you put a bet on it, right? You'd be making a lot of money because there's no way there was going to be an Azuri versus Dash in the final.
Dash.io, especially, yeah.
Dash.io, yeah.
I think, especially we still had Lexi in that tournament. Lexi was still there, right? And no Lexi, no Dromai in that final.
Well, there was one Dromai, wasn't there? I thought.
No, not in the finals, right?
Oh,
wasn't. I think there was a few Lexis in there as well, but
yeah,
Lexi's still obviously really strong, but you wouldn't have expected Azuri and Dash.
You've been playing a lot of Dash.io, Matt, and I'll get your thoughts afterwards, Alex. But what's been your sort of thoughts and takes on this Dash.io craze?
So it's incredibly powerful. Has basically the highest ceiling out of any Flesh and Blood deck I've ever played, and I've experienced the highs.
Yeah.
It was pretty. Playing that deck is pretty reminiscent of playing the Little Briar deck. where like you just have these turns that just keep going, and you're like, wow, I thought I was done. I'm not done. Um, where you're like, oh, another item off the top. Oh, a spark of genius. Oh, a tome. Oh, a tome. Oh, a tome. Like you know, I've had like you have turns where you literally play 11 cards in a turn. Um,
Yeah.
like I had a turn the other day where I dealt like 49 damage. Well, I gained 5 and dealt 44 to be clear, but still.
It feels like the Briar deck that you used to play, where you just get these turns where you go, well, if this hits, I draw a card, and then if this does it, I just draw. You just pump out card draw, and then you're able to sort of manipulate your sort of action points by using the item ability and the boots and having this inherent go again by boosting, which you know you'll hit because you can always look at the top card. Am I wrong in feeling? Am I getting my way off in that sort of thought
No, no,
process?
that's exactly it. That's exactly it. You get like, and also the fact that you basically, get like 3 or 4 looks at an extra card every turn,
Yeah,
like with your and a free action point if you're cranking, which is a a weapon shot for 2 damage. You're paying 1 resource for an item and a weapon shot, which is like
yeah,
that's nuts. That's nuts.
yeah.
And so like what the deck does is very powerful, but the problem
Mm-hmm.
is that it's like relatively susceptible, A, to being blocked out, um, and you can get around people who are just blocking you out, um, because you can sit back and then take some massive turns and get over the top of people.
Mm.
But it's when you have decks that are able to block you out with a massive suite of armor that can also then come back and disrupt you. So Bravo is the main example where like
Yeah.
it's just miserable. It's like you're just trying to set up this beautiful like symphony of a turn where you just everything works and you high octane and you boost and you tome and you tome and you spark of genius and you're just doing everything, and then you max velocity at the end, and like you're like you've got it, it's perfect, it's beautiful, and they're just like spinal and you're like or crippling or
Yeah, yeah,
any number of the million disruptive effects they have in their deck, CNC, Palm, just all of it. And they also have this massive fridge where like the best like what really made me put the deck down was I played into a Bravo where I took a 44 life swing turn where I gained 5, dealt 39,
yeah. Right.
presented 39 damage, and I lost the game.
Right.
Like, and I'm like, how bad can a matchup be where you deal 44 like or you swing 44 life points in 1 turn and you don't win?
Yeah, I know. I know.
That,
It's
that
yeah.
was
I know what you mean. I know
That
that
Bravo
feeling.
matchup was enough for me to put the deck down because I do think Bravo will be represented at Worlds pretty heavily.
We'll move on to him afterwards. Is there any sort of
Yeah.
thoughts you've got, Alex, on Dash IA?
Yeah, when you were talking about it, Matt, it's kind of reminiscent to when I was trying to see post Briar LL if Vincent works. And
You can't put
Vincent,
the ruby
like,
blade down, can you?
yeah, well, I had to try it.
Yeah, had a
I
go.
tried all the remaining room blades a little bit before I realized that they weren't so good. But Vincent specifically, I think even before the Briar LL, I was like, yeah, there's something here. You can kind of make it work. You can make some huge turns. And then you
Yeah.
face a Bravo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't have to think. They just have to block, and you just lose,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Mhm.
So I think in what we saw in the calling is a meta where one, people were a little bit unprepared. I think they didn't know exactly what they were dealing with. Two, maybe less Bravo because now the Lexis are quite good and teched into Bravo, and the matchup isn't so strong as we saw at calling Birmingham, right?
Mm.
But I think we're still gonna see it. To talk a bit about my experience going into the past month, trying to figure out CC a little bit.
Yeah.
I've been playing Fi quite a bit. I don't think there's a point let me hiding this. That's just what I'm gonna bring at Worlds, basically. Reason for it is that, well, obviously there's the Dromai matchup, right? Which we
That's
all
always
can
the
agree
reason, right?
probably is gonna be the most played at Worlds, by a decent enough margin.
It's a safe
And
bet.
I've played with some really good Dromai players, and those players are gonna make it far, no question. Even through people targeting their decks, I think Dromai is in a place where even if people know you're the best deck, you're still gonna do well. At least the very good players on it will do very well still.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm expecting all tournaments to have an okay amount of Dromai opponents. So that was the starting point, and then I was like, well, what are my strengths? What are the things that I am good at in terms of playing the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are some transferable skills that come from Runeblade? So Fi
Attacking.
actually, well, not just attacking, but turn structuring. I
Yeah.
feel like it's a good a skill that is learned, but it takes a long time to learn. I feel like
It's secret when it's that Runeblade thing,
yeah.
which well, we've all actually played Runeblades relatively well. Some at some point, some much more better recently. But it's the sequencing, isn't it? It's about it's knowing when you got to play the right thing at the right time. And I mean, I'd love to get your thoughts on how that transfers over to Fi, because I look at Fi a little bit more of just a spreadsheet, really. Whereas when you're playing Runeblade, you're like, well, I've got to do this first, followed up by this. And if you just get that order just slightly wrong, you lose out on quite a bit of damage. Is Fi kind of similar to that from your thoughts? From your play?
Yeah. In terms of fight, the order comes kind of from the mask trigger,
Yeah.
where you want to present those mask triggers in the most awkward ways for your opponent. But at the same time, one thing that doesn't tend to happen with Runeblades is usually at the beginning of the turn, you know kind of what you're gonna do, and that's not really gonna change. But with Fi, whether or not your opponent is blocking your attacks might completely change what you're gonna do next, or the card that you draw during your turn might completely change what you're gonna do next. So those few things are things that I've been trying to learn over the past month a little bit.
Okay.
And there's a lot of strong UK players that have practiced Fi for way longer than me, so they've been giving me some tips. George, for example,
Yeah.
I know he's not here, but he's been imparting some of his knowledge, which is very good.
Okay. Okay. So we talked a little bit about Dash.io. I mean, I think we're gonna let's bounce on to the Dromai sort of ninja thing. Now, I will actually ask this question. We'll move on to the ninjas, and it makes sense because ninjas are inherently quite good into Dromai, and Dromai is, cumulatively speaking, considered the best deck. Most podcasts, most content creators, most anything would say, yeah, Dromai now it looks like the strongest deck. Not an unbeatable one, but very strong. And Matt, you taught me that in a pro quest, but then again I was playing Bolton, so with your Yu-Gi-Oh! Dragon cards just to really throw me off.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I know.
You make your choices. I made mine.
We that's true. That's true. I was
I
definitely.
lost to a ninja in the top four both
Okay.
days.
So let's talk about Ninja, right? So this Fi and Katsu, is there a really big? Is there an argument on like which one's which? Is it more of a I prefer this one over the other one, or is one inherently better than the other one, Matt?
So I went today. I spent a fair amount of time this morning as I mourned the loss, as I mourned my breakup with my beautiful red-headed Dash.
Yeah.
In her wake, I went through all of like the top 7 decks, which I think are like Worlds competitors. So like Azalea, Bravo, Dash.io, OG Dash, Dromai, Fi, and Icelander, and then Katsu as well. I did look at Katsu.
Okay.
But I was able to like quickly, and I was looking at like what are the legitimate contenders as a pick for Worlds, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think those will be like those are mainly all of the main contenders. Uzuri not in the field there, although it won the calling last weekend. Like
it was a
it,
Lexi meta.
yeah, exactly. Like that's why you bring the deck is to beat up the Lexis, and he
Kind of what
beat
the Fi's doing. It's like the ninjas are the
he beat
beating
yeah
them
he
for
beat
the
the
best
non
deck.
Lexis, but like I think you can still say that like if you're trying to find the best deck for the room, it's not going to be Uzuri. I'm comfortable saying that.
Yeah.
But when I looked at Katsu's matchup spread, like you have a very similar spread as Fi, just that into those top 7 decks, your matchups are slightly worse. Like you have the same spread where like you're beating Dromai and Dash.io
But
pretty decently. I think Fi is decent into Dash.io, not insane, but I think it's not bad. Like maybe a slight favorite, or like maybe or 50-50. You're smashing Dromai. You're weak to Icelander. Uh, Katsu being a lot weaker to Icelander than Fi, I think, just because it suffers to disruption a lot more than Fi does. Its turns are like so much more structured than Fi. Fi can get to his endpoint of dealing a bunch of damage in as many ways as he wants, whereas Katsu has to go,
he needs the specific cards.
Surging Strike, this. It has to
He
do it
needs
that
his
way.
openers, and then he needs that follow-up card to be correct. And if it
Yeah, it
works, it
doesn't have
does.
spare parts.
I think if it works, he seems so much more oppressive than Fi. But if you don't have it, oh man, it just doesn't feel good. And Fi is just so much more. I really just don't care like as much. It's
Yeah, and then
just throw numbers.
and then I have Fi down as weak to Icelander. I think it's a slight dog to Icelander. I think it's slightly behind.
Yeah.
And then medium into OG Dash, and then slightly behind against Bravo and Azalea as well.
Okay, interesting.
I know some people disagree on the Bravo part, but which I guess I think Alex probably does disagree, and I don't have a strong feeling on it one way or another. Just that's what like the stats would say. And so like, but Katsu just like struggles even more into all of those. Like it does better in other parts of the meta, but in like what I expect to be a relatively condensed. I think in like a tournament like Worlds, you do expect it to be condensed to the top decks, right?
Yeah.
You don't expect to see so many people bringing like rogue decks, like just random stuff. You're not going to see Prisms and Kanos, maybe Kanos, Boltons, like a bunch of random decks because, it's your once a year shot. Like people aren't here to mess around.
No, that's true. What's your? You've been playing a bit, Alex. Would you agree with the Bravo and Azalea stats, or do you think it's actually manageable or beatable even?
Yeah, personally, and the reason why I chose Fi is because I think the top 3 decks that we're gonna see at Worlds will be Dromai, Bravo, and Azalea. I
Okay.
think, or at least I thought that before the Dash Iris, or the last calling, but I don't think that's necessarily gonna change the top 3 decks in my view. I think these are still gonna be the top 3, and I think you can build a list as Fi that has positive to 50-50 into all these matchups.
Okay.
So very positive to Dromai, positive into Bravo, and 50-50 into Azalea. Bravo, I agree, it's unfavored, but you can tech your deck to be favored, I think.
Yeah, that I can agree. Like there's certainly like stuff Fi can do to stop itself from getting blown out against Bravo. I guess you play some D-Rex, right? And that's the solution.
Yeah, I mean any deck can do that. That's the thing with
Yeah.
Bravo. Like any deck can just dedicate a certain amount of cyber slots to making the.
She got some stings, she got some fates, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Bravo. So I feel like last week, everyone, or maybe was it last week? Maybe 2 weeks ago. But
It
it,
was
felt
last
like
week.
it was last week. Everyone went, Bravo's a joke. If you take him, it's a joke. And now everyone's like, I think Bravo's actually. I was like, God, dude, think of your goddamn mind.
I may have said last week on a podcast that if you bring Bravo to a tournament, you are a fool.
And now,
You know, it's funny. I thought it was a good idea even before the current situation. I think actually Bravo, he is okay. I agree that it doesn't look good on the surface because one, you don't have like a favorable Dromai matchup. Some may say a 50-50. Some may say Dromai is heavily favored. Some may say Bravo is heavily favored. It's one of those,
It's just
it's a
back in the olden
60-60.
times. Yeah,
Yeah.
60-60,
Yeah.
But in my view, it's like a good Bravo player can really skill gap a mediocre Dromai player, from what I've seen.
Yeah.
And then you are, once you go a bit further down, like what I think is like the third most popular deck will be at Worlds, which is Azalea. That one is favored. So it's like 50-50 into Dromai, 50-50 into Bravo, because it's Bravo.
Yeah.
And then favored into Azalea. So, it's not bad, especially if you are a seasoned Bravo veteran and you have a lot of reps on the hero and it can really skill gap people, because it's also one of those decks. It's not as much as Ultim was, but it's still a little bit one of those skill gap heroes where you can really show if you have a good understanding of the hero and have a good understanding of your opponent's heroes, you can really extend the game and make it more favorable to you.
This is Bravo since I've started playing the game. Since ever. No matter what meta we're in, he's just there being decent. Is he the best thing since sliced bread? No, he isn't. But he's never the worst. He's always just there, right? Being able to ruin someone's day. And it can either be the top pick's day or the one that wants to deal with the top pick. And he goes, what about me? And it's like, oh, what about you? Goddamn Bravo. It's always you.
apart from that short period where he was the star of the show.
Apart from that short period where he was the star of the show. But that's a different time. A horrible time. But it was a time.
We tried to forget about it.
That was a... If it wasn't for Bravo star of the show, I suppose me and Alex wouldn't have been looking at Viscerai, because he 100% definitely would have lived in legend in that meta, for sure.
Yeah.
When you keep Skeletor and they give you Revel, ooh. But then they went, here's a Starvo, so don't worry. Viscerai's third place now. Okay. Right. Since you've been banging on about Azalea, Matt, I didn't hear you talk about Azalea. And Alex, you've been heavily giving Azalea a top 3 pick. I think and I agree, I actually think Azalea is I feel like she's this very unassuming hero that I think a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, but she's just not getting that talk about feeling going on in the socials and so on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's probably easy to forget, right? But before Lexi was this horrific menace that we hated in it, and I always quite like Lexi, but
no.
Before Lexi was this disastrous menace, right back at the start of Outsiders, we can probably all remember. Like there was a battle hardened.
It was actually it wasn't about Hannah. I think it was this like SCG community event where it was just a community event, but it was big and it was in America.
Yeah, there's that. I can't remember, a Realm Games or something.
Yeah, that was it.
But there's a big tournament, and I know because the Magnolia boys, we all had this Azalea list, and we're all discussing like, oh, should they bring the thing, because maybe we wanted to save it for Baltimore, because we were like, it was our super secret Azalea deck, right?
Yeah.
and they weren't even sure, like on the Friday, whether they were going to play it, and they get there and they go, yeah, everyone has the Azalea deck. We're like, oh, apparently it's pretty obvious to work out. Not that big a secret.
Pump and dump, yeah.
You can pump and dump and put Codex of Frailty in your deck, and you start to do some crazy things. And like that card is still insanely messed up. Like Codex of Frailty, yeah, is absolutely crazy.
But it's more fair now, right?
it doesn't feel as
It
abhorrent in
doesn't
Lexi.
feel abhorrent, no. And when you see it in an assassin deck, you kind of go, "Yeah, that's about right. That seems fair."
No, in Lexi it still feels pretty abhorrent.
Yeah,
No,
no,
in
in
Azalea,
Lexi. Oh, yeah, maybe
in
Azalea
Azalea
does.
it still feels pretty messed up. Every time they draw a codex, you're like, that's unfair. Every time they like Bolton shot, they go like Bolton shot, and they have like one card behind, and you're like,
Yeah, that's a codex. So let's talk about Azalea. What's your? Yeah, she was a menace. Outsiders came out, and then everyone quickly learnt that Voltaire exists and Lexi exists, and we moved on with our lives. And yes, she was absolutely Billy Bong broken, but now we've actually got this Azalea Outsiders, but she's like hot off the press now with Bullseye Braces being unbanned now, unsuspended. You know what I mean? She's hot. She's hot to go. I think she's looking really strong, personally.
yeah. So I have her matchups down here as like pretty horrific into Bravo,
Of course.
relatively poor into Dromai,
Hmm.
and then
Unless you
like
play a
ostensibly,
dominated blue Bolton shot in the Birmingham calling, that will literally make a meme. That I saw, yeah, that what?
yeah,
If you
one
play a
of
blue
them.
Bolton shot into Dromite, there is a chance you'll win. But I
Win
also
our
agree.
hearts at least.
I also agree. Is there nothing she can do to go right? Well, these are my two worst matchups. Do I not have some really heavy tools I can just push in now?
The Bravo matchup probably not.
Okay.
Honestly, like in the same way as like Dash IO, where you have this deck that's like big glass cannon.
Hmm.
Like the disruptability of Dromite, of not Dromite, of Azalea is like you can't fix the number of two blocks, the lack of armor, the kind of inability to put D reacts in your deck. I don't like putting, especially the red ones. Like I've seen them play some like fraps, but
Mm,
like
yeah.
that's really not, if you wanted to beat like a Bravo, like you can't really afford to put these sync blows in your deck because they're gonna full block you out sometimes, and it's just gonna brick your hand some of the time.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're gonna go opt, and you're like, oh, that's a sync blow.
Ooh.
Um,
Or even worse,
Ooh.
blind Azalea into Sing Below.
yeah, you can't like
Oh.
blind us there a sync blow in your ass till, and then yeah,
Chef's kiss.
when yeah, like it's a bit of a
It's a bit of a shitter. I agree.
yeah. You can't really fix. You can certainly the Drone matchup is like I would say poor, but not like world ending.
Yeah.
Um, like you can certainly see, and we saw, uh, one of the best players in the world, Nick Butcher, get beaten in the finals of calling Singapore, I believe it was, just a couple of weeks ago,
To Azalea.
to an Azalea, exactly. And so that matchup's clearly not, it's not fully done one way or another.
No, I
You
know.
can find a way to get through.
Yeah, red and ledger's real. All those dragons
Yeah,
could be a thing, but you've only got one action point.
yeah. Not even one action point, just one action.
Yeah, well, yeah, there you go.
Much
Right.
less than one action.
So,
You can't play
Alex.
it. You can't even play it. You can't as Azalea. No,
Yeah.
as Dash O, you can't even play an instant speed item off the top of your deck. It's really annoying.
Oh, man.
Hmm.
But
I know.
you're rating it quite high, Alex. Why's that?
So I rated it highly in terms of how played it will be.
Okay.
Right. Not necessarily how good it will be in the meta,
Yeah. Okay.
but I still think even though, well, as Matt said, poor matchups into both of what I think will be the top two most played decks is not a good starting point, right?
Right.
But I think Azalea has one thing going for it, which is she is pretty strong into all the other decks that are not like the top three most played decks.
Mm-hmm.
And all the other decks are still gonna probably make up 50% of the meta or something like
I'd
that.
say more. I'd say more. I don't think that like Dromai and like the top two will probably be like no more than 40% at most. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think like 65, 70% maybe even.
Wow.
It's so wide.
Yeah. I mean, if with a meta so kind of really all over the shop, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's actually probably like Alex is saying. That's a decent sort of place to be maybe for Azalea, because if it was just like 50% of it is going to be Bravo and Droma, you're like, well, that's actually going to be, I'm going to most likely face this. But if we've got both the dashes, Phais, Katsus, Icelanders, you know, that's you know, that's pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and one thing she has going for her, which is kind of sort of a Lexi light, is she against those non-top played decks, she just dominates. Like she can have some games which are non-games basically.
Yeah,
she just like completely destroys the other deck.
okay.
Yeah, I certainly had
there's
some,
something
like,
to that.
20 life losses as Dash IO where I just was like, oh. Like, I remember I had a game where, like, they went Codex, and I made a mistake. I didn't discard this blue boom grenade from my hand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, whatever. It's a blue. It'll be fine. And like 3 turns later, my opponent has dominated a red in the ledger, like at me every turn. And I still have this goddamn blue boom grenade in my hand, and I just can't get rid of it. It doesn't block, it doesn't do any damage. I just still got my 1 action a turn. And I'm like, I'm losing my mind because I'm like, I made a mistake 3 turns ago, and I still have this godforsaken card in my hand. Yeah,
that's her, right?
I think people complain a lot about Lexi, but if it was like an Azalea as top 1, like broken deck, it would be hell. It would genuinely be hell.
It would
Because
generally
like
be hell. But
you
then
just sit there every turn, you're like, what's that red in the ledger? Yep, cool. Attack for 4, go again. Doesn't matter.
But
Go
then
ahead.
this is why they printed Assassin.
Yeah.
That's
An assassin.
Yeah. They just show up and go, is that a ranger I smell? We'll just...
Give me those arsenals.
Yeah, that's it. Well, let's move on to another hero that we haven't actually been really talking about much, unless only when you brought it up, Matt, when we were talking about Phi, is Icelander. This hero, I feel, is, you know what? I've actually put my money on, I think Icelander's going to win it, right? And this is my reason why. It's because no one's talking about it, and that is perfect. That's exactly where she wants to be, absolutely unassumed, and just sitting around people going and forgetting that this motherfucker has Channel 8 Frigid. The remnants of Tales of Aria lives on through her, right?
Yeah.
So this hero embodies the worst part of Tales of Aria to its absolute maximum, and no one's talking about it. And I just think you're gonna get got, mate. And what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm actually, so as of today, as of this morning, as I went through every deck in the field, and I worked out what was the most appealing to me. I said that you have a poor, not disastrous, but poor matchup into Droma. You're behind, but you can certainly win.
I think so now. I prefer that. I remember playing a lot of Icelander, and I'm thinking, Jesus, the Droma decks are getting redder and redder and redder, and that's just beautiful, bro.
Yeah, like you can get to a point where, like, I played a game against a Droma earlier, and just for every turn of the game, I ruined their turn every time. Kill your dragon, attack, kill your dragon, attack, kill your dragon, attack, pop, attack, kill your dragon, CLF.
Oh,
It's just like for like the entirety of the game, for literally the entirety of the game, they were never able to attack with every dragon on the field. Like they just never got to do everything that they wanted. They were just playing out these dragons that never did anything. And that's basically just discarding cards into the void at that point.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm not saying it's a good matchup, but it's winnable. It's certainly winnable. It might be like a 40-60. So that's the top of the meta. But then Bravo, banger matchup.
Well, I think honestly though, there's been a lot. When I was chatting to Pablo about this, I think Bravo. I actually disagree. But then you guys are playing a lot more. But I think there was a time when Bravo goes, I can't really afford to put AB3 into my deck, and I've been told that once they start throwing in the AB3s as in their decks, it really does turn into something maybe a little bit different. Or am I completely off the mark?
Well, I played, I think, 5 Bravos today. I beat 4 of them. I lost to 1. it was the one that had AB3.
Yeah.
But I don't so much think it was the AB3 that beat me as the three. Uh, the three. What's the one for block 4?
Oasis.
Prevent 4. Yeah, the 3 Oasis respites that lined up with my. Well, it was 3 turns in a row. I went red, red Aether Ice Vein, and he went Oasis respite 3 turns in a row. And I thought that probably was more the impact than the thing. And I was like, wow, that's what it takes to win
Yeah.
against an Icelander. And I drew well, but he drew better. And I managed to lose a game, and the rest of them felt relatively easy. So it certainly could be better, playing the AB. But then you get those games where Dromai or Icelander just attacks a lot. You just go Scar, Finder's Fighting Spirit,
Wound 'em
Bull,
all, yeah.
and then you just what has this AB done for me for the first half of the game?
Yeah.
And so I do think it is Icelander favored, and it probably does get a bit better now that these Bravos have some space to find AB3. But then you've got a good ninja matchup. You've got the Azalea matchup. I
don't think that's
hear
good.
people arguing both sides of that matchup. I hear people arguing both sides of that matchup.
I honestly think it's actually Azalea's to win because I was playing in a bit of that in Shin. I'm not even going to claim that I'm actually a decent Icelander player for sure. So it's just my thoughts were the games I felt like I was able to take stuff down is when the Channel 8 frigids and this disruption stuff just started to, because you have to admit that with Icelander it does come into a bit of a play of I've got to get these real core pieces showing up, and when they do, it's now my decision to time these in the best possible way, right? But if I kind of just don't get them in the right time or at all in the first good couple of turns, and they're just bombing arrows, which is what they were going to do to you anyway, right? It can just run away from you, but Icelander can claw that matchup back pretty well if these Channel 8 frigids pop off at a really sort of key term, which, but I don't know how much agency you've got there, whereas Azalea just goes, I'm just going to pump and dump, baby.
I think Warmongers has changed that matchup a lot. It used to be way more Azalea favored before. Now with Warmongers, it's closer. Probably still Azalea favored a little bit, but not much, I think.
Okay. Well, what about your thoughts, Alex, and as Icelander in general?
Icelander in general, I think Icelander is a very good deck. You will get a lot of people like myself switching over to Fi, which because it is quite an easy-ish deck to pick up. I think it has a lot more depth than people think, but it's still a deck people gravitate towards. So you've got that going for you a little bit. I'm not sure, Matt, into Dash.io, but I think disrupting her is not bad, right?
I think it's okay. It's not anywhere near as effective as Azalea or Bravo, where the disruption is heavy and life ruining.
Yeah.
Genuinely heartbreaking. For the last because I found this deck and I was doing crazy things and loving it, and then I was like, let's try out the tough matchups, and then it was just morbid. So yeah, it's not Icelanders. Hard to say massively favored one way or another. Kind of close, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So that one, fair enough. But you look at Bravo, which I think there will be a lot of. So that's one matchup you are really, really getting a lot of EV from. So that's good. The thing with AB3, I think actually even as Bravo, I wouldn't focus on AB3. I think my best chance is to aggro down and hope the game ends very fast. I think that's the best way that Bravo can win versus Icelander. It's not favored, not even close to favored for Bravo. it's sort of quite unfavored matchup. But the best way he can win is present AB1, get a bunch of armor, and hope that basically all of their hands are good hands. The problem that Bravo will find is if he stumbles, he will probably lose the game. And he can do that quite a lot because he runs so many blues, right? But if he doesn't stumble, he can actually get there because he has a lot of armor. So if they're playing Boolander, you just like first opportunity you get, you'll full block with all your armor and just try to end the game as soon as possible. But Icelander, she can usually win that matchup quite comfortably, which is strong for Icelander. And also, so Dromai, that one is interesting. So you mentioned that people are not talking about Icelander. I think a lot of people are talking about Icelander.
Let's just more from that's how I sort of feel from it, right? Because I sit about on Twitter, just being a goblin, right? And you kind of just have your ear to the ground, in the group with you guys, and I'm kind of also just got my ear to the ground on what's kind of going around in Europe, and then because when the content creator side of me, I just chat to everyone, right? And I know that the big players are also, of course, you lot are going to be thinking about Icelander, but the pundits, the community, the bigger picture is just, I think they're not saying no, but it's just not, it's not as high. I think she could be rated maybe a bit higher than what I feel she is currently placed. But that's just my sort of feeling of it, of it all. I think when it comes to the actual tournament, I honestly think that she's going to be largely looked at and largely played by a lot of very skilled people. But I think also those skilled people are tossing and turning and going, sure, it's just Dromai or Icelander, right? When it comes to complexity of a hero, that the stuff that you can do and perform with these heroes, they're very complex to do. And I think those people are tossing and turning, going, "I'm either going to do this with Icelander or I'm going to be this Dromai player." That's my sort of thoughts on it.
Yeah, I test with a lot of strong Dromai players, and gotta tell you, they are thinking very, very, very deeply about that matchup, and they know it's not as favored as it used to be.
No, because I remember when I took Icelander to nationals last year, and the thought of a Dromai. Because back then, Dromai had to run loads of blues because Viserai was just an absolute menace, and they had to deal with this real problem of Viserai. So they had to throw in loads of blues to just calm these rune chants down, which was just automatically a huge problem for Icelander because they're like, oh god, he's just got all these goddamn blues. And now they went, oh, Viserai's just unplayable now. So... And we've got Tome, right? Tome, loads of reds. Oh, this is sweet. Let's get redder and redder and redder and redder. And it's now like... And Mara Faris doing quite well in the Pro Tour, showing off a much more aggressive game plan of Dromai, throwing in, some attacks in there now. So they're like, okay, so we're cutting down on dragons and we're throwing in more attacks and they're all red? Bro, this is sweet. And every time people played those decks into me, I'm not even a great Icelander player. I'm like, dude, you can't do anything. I'm just like Matt said, you're just getting frozen out of everything. So I honestly feel people got to... I honestly, if they're going to stick to this game plan of what Dromai is, I think Icelanders... I personally, I think it's just a little bit more favoured. But I know that Themai exists,
Yeah, that can't. We don't have an answer for that one yet.
Yeah. I know
that Tome exists, which is pretty good at stopping some disruption.
Yeah, Dromai is my not Dromai. Icelander is my current first pick.
Yeah, I think so.
It's the deck I'm playing at the minute. I have Dromai I can fall back on, and then the third pick we haven't really spoken about is Dash. Like OG Dash?
OG Dash. Okay, cool.
OG Dash. Yeah, that's the last on this list of heroes that we haven't really spoken about.
Well, we haven't.
Um,
To be honest, we've actually talked about Dromai without talking about Dromai.
well, I think we've talked about Dromai. It's
It's the best. Yeah,
you know
yeah,
it comes up at the start of every conversation, and Dash is the last one where like
yeah,
you have a good Bravo matchup. You've got the pistol plan, you've got D-Reacts,
yeah,
you've got a good Icelander matchup where
yeah.
um, the sort of flexibility of Dash's turns, where you can't really stop it because if you give it a frostbite, you're not going to ruin its turn. It's just going to go, okay, I'll just load the pistol and shoot you. And you're like, okay,
Yeah.
fine. I didn't like, it's not like where you go, right, I'm going to do this huge turn with a big finisher, and then you're like, no, you have a frostbite. They're just like, okay, sure, load up or block some or AB some, or because they have the easy access to 3AB as well, and
They can play the long
um,
game really well.
they can play the long game, they can play the short game. They just, it's not again an unlosable matchup, but they're solid. They're good into Icelander. They're pretty medium into Ninja, and then the tough matchups in the field are relatively tough into Azalea. Um, you don't quite have enough defensive tools to really go like right over the like defensively, like to deal with like some of Dromai's Azalea's attacks. But you did gain adaptive plating, which can be quite instrumental.
Hmm.
A block 3 armor can help you cover a red in the ledger, like really, like that can
But the
get over a
cost
red in
of
the ledger,
but the
which
cost
would
of an
ruin your life.
item, though, right? And that's incredibly important for Dash.
Yes, but we do have some items which you can get value out of now with like Spark of Genius into protocols and stuff like that, where they stick around and you're not unhappy to sacrifice them off.
Mm.
It, there's options there, and then you do have a traditionally tough matchup again. There's a reason why it's at the top into Dromai.
Yeah.
And if you can't solve those matchups, that's the hard part of the deck.
And can you like is that is that real?
Well, Dromai traditionally Dash didn't get to run a lot of poppers
Mm.
because it plays mech cards, and there isn't many mech cards that were 6.
No.
But now they gave us like 150 new mech cards,
Yeah.
and there were some 6s in there, so you get to
There's some 6s in there. That's all that matters.
yeah you get to not ruin your entire deck by getting CNCs and a bunch of other random cards which have 6 power and don't say mechanologist on.
Yeah.
And is that enough to fix it? I don't know. I haven't really done the work. I've been putting in time on Icelander, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Cool.
Over the next few days, I've got until probably Monday or Tuesday to lock in what I want to play.
Yeah, and then that's it. You're in until someone shows up in that hallway in Barcelona and they've got some, I don't know, Max the Hype Nitro deck or something, and everyone's like, oh no. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, wait, how do we beat turn 2 Mechanoid? And you're like, what?
What about you, Alex? Just the thoughts on Dash?
Mm.
Or do you not know?
So I think I've actually tested her a little bit. I think when I was designing my hero a month, or more than a month ago.
Deciding your hero a month ago. Wow. Okay. That's dedication.
Yeah. I've been, but that's usually what I do is I lock my hero like a month before, and then I start practicing with the hero, because it takes me a long time to master something. So I did the same with Briar. I locked her 1 month, and then I started practicing her.
Cool.
So I was testing Azalea, Dash, and Phi, and Dash I found can get there against Dromai, but you have to get lucky. You have to basically find very fast one of those items that buffs your gun, and then have a strong what's the card that gives you extraction points?
High octane.
Yeah.
The power.
So
cards.
you need to use these cards together in order to beat a good Dromai, and you need to find them quite fast. to both be able to clear the dragons in the early game and also set up a strong finisher turn with the combination of the purifiers and the high octane. And sometimes you can get there, but most of the times you will not get there, in my experience. So yes, like kind of unfavored or even quite unfavored matchup into Droma is not good, but a very good matchup into Bravo. So kind of like with Icelander,
Yeah.
you could argue a bit different in some parts of it.
We're just tackling different problems.
Right, correct. And then going down to Azalea, probably you're not very good into Azalea. But then you get down to the like more mid-tier matchups. What I like about Dash and why I was considering her is the same reason why I like Runeblade, is because she can have sort of a matchup into everything. And she also can have many different archetypes that you can build your deck as. So your opponent doesn't really know what archetype you're playing. I mean, they know you're probably going to be a boost dash that maybe has a sideboard that can play slower with the item setup.
Yeah.
But you could also be like a full fatigue dash, right? They don't know. So
well, they don't know near the start, and then it was worlds, and people. The scouting will commence, and if you're near the top, that it starts. The secret starts to get worse. And does that? and does she need the surprise to get through? And it
certainly helps.
It certainly, So it certainly does help. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this on two absolutely wild card picks that maybe I've got my two, and maybe I'll just throw them out just to make it a little easier, right?
I think we might share one.
Okay, all right. Well, you say it, and
you
say it, and then I'll agree. So it looks like we know.
Okay. Well, I was going to say I think Max could be kind of.
That's not one of them.
Okay, yeah, I think Max kind of scary. Like, if Max does his thing like quickly, which is make a mech, then like the mech is hard to beat. Like, I can say this as the first person to ever cast a mech in a competitive event. If you mech quickly, that is insane. I'm pretty sure that is actually a true statement as well.
Okay.
I regrettably registered.
One of Matt's many.
No. It was, trust me, not an achievement. It was not an achievement. I scrubbed that tournament incredibly hard.
Okay.
But one time I managed to mech someone and then attack them 7 times in a turn with it. So that was my day.
There you go.
And then the other times I made a mech, blocked with it. He cast 2 shreds, and my mech died on the stack.
GG, bro. GG. So,
but yeah, like, if Max mech quickly, like, that's very difficult to beat. Like, if you're getting a turn 3 or turn 4 mech out of Max, it's like so hard to beat that for so many days.
Or it doesn't.
Or it doesn't.
Is it safe to say it's a combo deck, right? It's the
Luminaris turn. It can, sometimes, you got to go quick and it just becomes an aggro deck, but it can play, it does intend to play that style of like build up these hyper drivers, make a mech,
and then go,
and then play your game out. And then sometimes you combo with the high octane, or sometimes you just accrue a disgusting amount of value by having a block 6, attack 6 tank.
Sure. I'm going to give you mine, Reiner. Now, you can laugh me out of the house here. Maybe I'm not saying he's wild card, right? I'm not saying he's good. I think he's wild card enough. He sits there and he does kind of do a good dunking job on Dromai. And he does an okay dunking job on Icelander as well. I mean, Icelander really does not want to see a Rhinar player show up and completely scuff up the cards she wants to pitch, the cards she wants to block with, and just come in with that one attack for 8. That's really, really annoying. I've been playing some games into some Rhinar players, and I'm just like, this is incredibly infuriating because I didn't want to pitch this and do this now. I don't want to lose this card, and you just eat damage to the face too many times. So I think Rhinar, I don't know. I think he's just he's that hero, right? You know, that just kind of just rocks up and be really annoying. And if there's a hero that can completely smash up items 2 bits, I mean, he's the best hero.
Yeah, he did just get the smashing performance as well.
And I mean, he didn't need it, but he got it.
He did not need it, but he did get it. You're right.
I mean, what, Alex, is there? Am I smoking too much? Brute crack here.
Well, I wouldn't know. I'm not a Brute player.
All right.
I played Brute one time at the Team Blitz event in
All right. Okay.
Madrid.
We're talking Blitz. That's legit, right?
Okay,
And it was still a miserable experience for me. So, and that was Blitz.
Well, as a seasoned Brute player,
Yeah.
yeah, I can say you are smoking some heavy crack.
Yeah.
Here,
Okay.
unfortunately.
But I'm just gonna put this little reminder here, right? Last year at Worlds, Reinhardt won the call-in. Okay. I don't know how. No one really knows how, but he did, right? And I don't know. Maybe there's something there. And then in my last,
I don't know how's the Bravo matchup.
Anyway, so it's not good. It's not really that good. It's not good at all. It's basically you just do this. You both go dee, and then he has Crippling Crush.
Right.
But but then you also go dump your whole hand, and here's a. They're both just kind of just going. We're going to get down low until one of us has that turn, and it's most of the time it's Bravo because he can do his turn when he wants to do his turn because his hero ability says that. Whereas Rhino goes, well, if I roll a 6, this could get crazy, and that's always the thing, right? My last one, maybe I was about to say it, and then I'm like, nah, Kano, because of Icelander, right?
I agree, but I actually agree because we've seen that Worlds before. Everyone, that's like the first thing people think of something to spike Worlds with, right? Or a big Predator or something. They first think of Kano, right? But I think it's not too bad. I mean, Icelander is not good, but the Icelander needs to know how to play.
Yeah,
they need to play well, right?
Also,
Go on, Matt. Go on.
I was going to say everyone because Icelanders have a relatively well expected part of the meta. Like a lot of people have AB 3.
Yeah, they just
but the thing, Go ahead.
Oh, go on. No, Alex, what's your counterpoint?
I think I'm not a Kano player, but I think Kanos don't necessarily mind high AB counts. What they do mind is Oasis Respite.
Yeah.
They do mind decks and playstyles that can put AB3 and be very aggressive while still playing a decent blue count. So Dash, for example, right? That's pretty bad because they can smash you real fast and still potentially have a blue and AB3 in hand. So that's really bad, right? But a deck like Dromai, for example, I mean, if they don't have like fan cover or something like that, you might beat them quite fast. I mean, we had a pro quest, I think, where a lot of good players came from my team included, and they got destroyed by a local Kano player.
this
they
Kano
got smashed.
player.
The Dromai got smashed. With a 50 damage turn. The Bravo got smashed from our team, and they're like playing at Worlds, right? So it's probably not great, but something to keep an eye out for.
since the day I started this game. That's always been the way. And I know I said I was going to be my last one, but this is my literal last one. Everyone else, whatever. Is Azuri, and I know you said it at the start, Matt. I know you said it at the start. But is Azuri done? My thoughts in my head are, well, okay, let me throw this out here. She won a calling. Granted, this was a Lexi meta. But the point we made was the field's kind of all over the shop, right? We know that Dromai is one of the best heroes to take, and and I know that also Icelander is as well. But they're thinner. It's not going to be heavily populated. Is she kind of like an assassin? Someone can be ducking and dodging and just taking out ninjas and Azalea? That's like this. I thought this was a serious podcast, Hamish. I thought you were good.
Okay, it's just I wanted to check just how bad those matchups were, right?
Yeah.
And Fabry starts aren't everything, but they give you a good indication of a general understanding, right?
Sure.
And when the general understanding over an 8,000 game sample tells me that they win 29% of their games into Dromai.
Okay, well, yeah, that's bad. We said that was bad.
And 30% of their games.
What is good?
Tell me the good. Give me the good news, Doctor.
Well, then Dash.io.
Yeah.
They're crushing it. They're smashing it. Absolutely smashing it.
Yeah, cool. And the ninjas.
Katsu, they're smashing.
Yeah. Fi.
They're not beating.
Oh.
Okay. So no. I was looking for the good news. It sort of did end there. It really did end there.
Oh. Okay. Well, I did say this was wild card.
Dash is not bad as well. Dash looks like a good matchup. So both their mechs.
And the Azaleas?
Not bad. Somehow.
The thing is with the mechs is like all the new players are playing the mechs right now. So
somehow Uzuri Switchblade is losing to Azalea. I don't know.
No, I know. It was just.
It just does less damage than you want it to. It's just paying 2 mana.
Okay.
For a dagger for 1 is a quite sad deal,
I know. I was just going to throw that as a final little thought, because we're going to have some Azuri people maybe who have tuned in, and they're going to sit there and go, oh, "What about my about Azuri?" Sorry, guys, the UK champions disagree heavily, and everyone else, yeah, sorry, bros.
It's more to say, like, I don't like when I go to a tournament, I'm only trying to find one deck, which is the best one.
Yeah.
There are lots of choices you can bring, which are fine, which you could top 8 with. I'm just trying to find exclusively the highest win percentage deck in the tournament.
Yeah.
That's the puzzle for me,
Cool.
And it isn't that for a lot of people. A lot of people like Sam Braven, who won the UK calling, top 8 at our nationals, won the RTN or won the ProQuest in Bristol the other week. Like, he wasn't looking to find the best deck. He just likes playing Icelander. And he was like, I'm going to play Icelander at Worlds. And if I end up playing Icelander, I did all of this work looking at every deck in the meta to end up at the exact same place as him. But he got to be there 4 months prior, maybe more, right?
Yeah.
So is my approach the best? Maybe you just play your Uzuri deck and it back to front, upside down, inside out, and you crush people with it and you win a calling like the guy in Australia. So
there you go. So thank you so much, guys. What are you looking forward to the most for Worlds to end this off, Alex? Oh, sorry, Matt. You're about to say it, and then
Alex,
go. What are you most looking forward to?
Looking forward to visiting Barcelona.
Yeah,
as a lot of people coming. Funny enough, like my best friend from childhood, he contacted me like a couple months ago. We haven't spoken in years, and it turns out like he got into Fab as well, and he saw me in some videos, and he's coming to Barcelona, so I'm gonna get to see him again after like years and years and years.
Amazing. What's his name?
So that's what I'm. Dino.
There you go. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
That's really heartfelt. That's awesome, man. I mean, that'd be hard to top. What about you, Matt? Have you got some sort of hidden gem friend that's just suddenly got into Fab and he's going to see you in another country?
Nah, but I am looking forward to rooting for my girlfriend in the cosplay competition.
Oh yeah, I'm not judging, so you'll be fine.
You're not judging? Yeah, okay. We got to have words about that, actually. Yeah, I've heard about that. And there was a robbery that occurred at the Calling Birmingham.
Look, right. Look. I just write numbers down. But what are you most looking forward to for Worlds?
No, no, I really am looking forward to that. Like shout out
Brilliant.
to Niche. She's put like an insane amount of work into her cosplay for like the last like every time every time I speak every night, like she's just been like spending nights and evenings and days and weekends and just put so much effort and time into her cosplay. And like I'm just like blown away by how much time and like how well she's done with it.
You both. It
So I'm
sounds
really
like you
excited to see that.
both have got your journey. You're like, all right, well, I'm grinding for the best deck, and she's like grinding, literal, probably grinding like fabric to make the
Yeah,
best
yeah,
costume.
yeah. And we might both end up on the same hero.
Oh,
I'll leave it
Interesting.
at that. I'll leave it
leave
at
it as
that. You know.
that. It's got well. There we go, everyone. Thank you guys so much for taking your time to come and chat on this channel. I hope everyone has enjoyed this, and this will be out just before Worlds. Just good luck to you too, and good luck to everyone who's taken part. And see you there. Thanks, guys.
Peace out.
Bye.